Oh boy, we are back with another episode of FU Friday, because FU Friday is the day that we get to say FU to consistently Gary Gensler and others.
That's right.
So welcome back to Go FUD Yourself on a Friday. My name is JD Gagnon. This is my good friend Ceara. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm thrilled that it's Friday because we get to be a little bit more playful. I feel like it's a good cadence that we have in the week, actually, where Thursday's pretty serious with crypto arms race because there's a lot of news that's going on all the time and we really have to get through it. Yesterday we had 13 pages of news. Whereas today we get to just harp on SBF and Gary Gensler for a full half hour. It's kind of cathartic, you know?
Yeah, SBF is usually the butt end. And I mean, we can't not say FU to SBF.
Right now. We don't
right
have
now,
a choice.
You can't avoid seeing it in the news, which is funny. I have some comments on that later. But what specifically are we going to talk about today?
Well, so we are going to talk about kind of early FTX and how some of the key players in the court case today actually joined FTX and what that looked like and why they did it. We're going to talk about the money that actually left FTX. We're going to talk about what's going on with SBF in the courtroom a little bit. You know, on Blockworks, they were even talking about like what he was wearing. So I'll make some comments.
I saw a lot about his haircut too.
Like, yeah. And then we'll finish off, I think, with Binance and FTX. So how Binance played a part, how they offered to purchase and then pulled out, and so on and so forth. So there's a few different things. I don't think it's a new news for people who are really invested in the case, but it is a good background for people who are wondering what happened a year ago, what happened 2 years ago, why is this happening now? And we probably will also talk about Michael Lewis's new book, Going Infinite, and some of the insider items that have come out of there that could also impact the court case.
Awesome. Well, we definitely have our work cut out for us today. So let's freaking go. Where are we? Oh, I was just going to say, actually, before I get into that, part of the reason that we do this show is actually to help dispel some of the myths and to try to counter some of the news narratives that might be hyperbole and so on. And this SBF situation is a great example of that, where people that are super keen on the news probably know what's going on, and none of this is new. But the vast majority of people that are hearing about this don't have a really thorough understanding, and there's no discussion about it other than, you know, headlines on the news right now. So it's all just a bunch of FTX headlines, hyperbole, people trying to get clickbait. And if you weren't thinking more deeply about it, like hopefully we're trying to encourage, you wouldn't really get down to the meat and bones of what's happening. But anyways, we got you covered. All right, let's freaking go. Man, I got too excited.
Yeah, you always get too excited.
I didn't even talk about how we're a live show Monday to Friday. And on all the major venues.
You can find us everywhere.
I know, you can find us all over the place. Probably on OnlyFans, just under different names. It's not under GoFundMe.
If you look hard enough.
If you look hard. Okay, anyways. So let's start.
Okay, before we jump in, actually, I just want to point out that yesterday I posted 2 different LinkedIn articles on the Rome Blockchain Labs account that are also about the background of FTX and SBF. So if you are curious, if you're just hearing about this in the news and that's why you're watching today, and you're like, what the heck happened? There's actually like a good timeline of the events that went on. I also wrote it as a narrative so that it's kind of Halloween-y because I can do that this month. All month, everything I read is like extra campy. But if you,
Halloween cringe.
Yeah, all of it's terrible. But just so that you know, if you're like, I don't have a good understanding of this timeline, you guys are going too in depth, you want something a little bit lighter, those 2 LinkedIn articles might be where you want to start. And just to give you an idea of how campy they are, they're about the SBF sorcerer.
Monsters of crypto. If you're listening on Twitter Spaces, she's got some pretty awesome graphics.
There's some hilarious graphics.
production team put together. They're pretty awesome. There's a really cool video too.
Yeah, we're gonna do that at the end. Let's do that on our way out.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, let's go a little bit backwards. Do you remember when FTX started? Were you around? Were you here for it?
Yeah, I was. I vaguely remember it was kind of a nothing burger at first. Like they went from like nothing, 0 to hero in like 10 minutes. It was kind of crazy.
It seemed like that, but it actually started with Alameda Research. So SBF had this concept that he wanted to be an effective altruist, and there's actually an effective altruism community practice. And the idea behind that is that you're going to solve the world's problems, but in really effective ways. It's like a little bit of a savior complex group, but also I couldn't find any use cases where they had achieved anything, but that doesn't mean that they don't. Maybe they're just quiet about it or have bad press. I don't know. They have a whole website. You can look up the effective altruism community website. And so the idea was that he was going to work with them to solve the world's problems, and crypto was like a new monetary source for how they might effectively be altruistic. He ended up raising $170 million from the effective altruism community, and then was going to invest it in crypto and lost pretty much all of it. So that was as Alameda. And then after that happened, Gary Wang and Nishad Singh joined Alameda, and that is how it evolved into FTX. And this is relevant because Gary Wang and Nishad, I believe, both were on the stand yesterday and really did not have nice things to say. But just so that you know, this wasn't only SBF. He started from maybe this like warm, fuzzy place in his heart, maybe from some ego from wanting to achieve these different things. He lost a bunch of money, and then he onboarded some other people, and that is how FTX was found. And apparently after that, the investments were turned around, and they made a profitable trading system based on, I think it was Gary Wang's code.
Yeah, I mean, FTX Alameda was a good fund at first. Like, I mean, they were investing in the best projects. They had incredible market making. Eventually, this is after Gary and what's the other guy's name?
Nishad.
How do you say it? Nishad?
I don't know how to say it. I'm saying Nishad.
Nishad. Okay. Anyways, like their systems were pretty good. Like their market making was solid. They were making good money. They were making smart investments.
I mean, sometimes they had daily losses of $500,000. So
yeah, that was at the beginning when they were trying to figure out this trading.
They turned it around to turn into what they were. Like, they must have been doing something right?
Yeah, the effective altruism thing is interesting. It's kind of akin to communism, in the sense that if, like, in theory,
that's such a reach.
No, it's a true story. It's a true story. And here's why. Because in theory, it works really well. Communism actually worked well in theory, where everybody has like this great quality of life, and it's all equal, and everybody's happy and harmonious and all this shit. Well, effective altruism sounds like that, but the problem is that power generally corrupts in an incredible way. And this is unfortunately one of those examples. I honestly, and I don't usually stand up for SBF very often, but I honestly think he actually believed this shit. Like, this became.
Oh, I think so too.
Like, he actually believed he was an effective altruist, and that was his calling. And so, I mean, a real tin hatter would think that he did that even maliciously and took advantage of that.
No, he was like 25,
would be genius
26
if he did,
when he was first doing this. Yeah.
I
don't know. I think he was pretty young. And at 25, 26, we still really believe that we're going to change the world in those ways. I guess he did, but
hey, I still believe I'm going to change the world. Come on.
But you know what I mean? Like, we have this grandiose sense of purpose. I guess we should always have that grandiose sense of purpose. But I find that a lot of, like, around that age, I was involved with DataKind, which does something really similar to the effective altruism community, where they go work with nonprofits and try to solve data problems for them. And in reality, like, the data is probably not the problem of the nonprofit, right? And just like with the effective altruism group, they're trying to solve problems where they've kind of selected the wrong problem. But
yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I think that was his draw for politicians and for, like, Absolutely. He used that as so much of his character, his portrayed character, not necessarily his actual character, but this was a big piece of who he was, what he was all about, why FTX was, should be supported by the government of the United States and every other government. So this is important context. This effective altruism thing wasn't just what he was going to do with his proceeds. It was actually a meaningful piece of how he carried himself and operated the business was on the back of this. philosophy, so to speak. And so it's really unfortunate that it happened to these people, but I feel like often, and there's speculation that Sam Altman, the guy that started OpenAI, has aspirations of, and has had aspirations of being the world's richest man, and has actually planned this meticulously to become that person instantly, based on equity value of OpenAI. And
do you think
it seems kind of strange.
How to do that? Was he like, how to become the world's richest man?
Maybe. But honestly,
like prompt engineering it. Yeah. Okay.
I wouldn't put it past some people to actually believe that, that they're going to do this, and that they're going to be the savior of the world. The exception to the rule is a guy like Elon. I mean, Elon is the richest man currently in the world, and he's done a lot of good, arguably. He's probably poked the bear a lot, and made people a little frustrated, but I think he's done a lot of good, generally speaking, for society. So hopefully Sam does the same thing. Unfortunately, Sam Altman, SBF. I think the ruse is up.
So yesterday and over the last week, I guess, we did see quite a bit of money move from. So we talked about this earlier in the week too, but more money moving. So starting on September 30th, wallets related to FTX, the exploiter of FTX, have now moved. Well, in the last 24 hours, it was 36.8 million, but over the last week, I think it was over $50 million of ETH have been moved.
Yeah, 36.8 million
in the last 24 hours.
In the last 24, yeah. And then
it's September 30th, it's been quite a bit more than that.
So I find this kind of interesting. In this article in particular, it said there was a bug that in the code that led to an $8 billion deficit. I completely and vehemently disagree with that. That's like a separate thing, though. No, I know.
That doesn't have to do with the ETH being moved around.
It's in the same article.
Yeah, that doesn't mean it's right. That doesn't mean it's the same thing.
Hey, don't be hating on my article interpretation.
This article had like 5 things in it. Also, that Friendtech is facing SIM swaps, which like
there was so much speculation about who hacked, that it was an inside job, that it was SBF, that they were trying to take money out, and I mean the fact that it's moving during the trial, in my opinion, is another way to try to prove that it wasn't Sam, even if he had something to do with it. There's a lot of weird speculation around this. No one really knows who stole this money. If you were a hacker, this to me seems like the worst possible time / company to exploit. Yeah. Like when the
that's
entire
why people think
world
it's connected to Sam, because they're trying to protect him.
Well, yeah, because the rest of the world is watching. So like, if you thought for a second you're going to get away with this without the entire world trying to figure out who you were. So anyways, we'll have to see. I mean, it had to be somebody sophisticated with the kahunas to try under those circumstances. So hopefully they get to the bottom of this. I just, 8 billion is such a big hole. Like I just
so much money. And so that 8 billion number came out on the stand, one of the primary coders, so not the original coder, but instead Adam, I don't know how to pronounce the last name, Yedidia. Adam came out on stand and said that he had shown them that this exploit could happen. He had shown them the code, and they chose not to do anything about it. So that shows
the exploit or the $8 billion.
The 8 billion.
Interesting.
And they didn't do anything about it, and so that shows that they weren't doing their due diligence for their customers, right?
Yeah, exactly. They clearly were.
Which is kind of the whole thing that the case is based upon from SBF's side, is that he was just going about it, and this happened, and he had no idea that what was going on. And he acted in good faith, and the business was growing, and how could he have known that it was going to collapse like this? And we'll get into the Binance stuff, like that could be the case. But what we're seeing on stand right now is everybody throwing him under the bus.
Well, yeah, everybody's trying to like this is what happens in these types of cases, though, right? Like everybody's trying to save their own skin once the jig is up, and so here we are.
Wang, who was one of the original founders that moved them from Alameda to FTX that we talked about earlier, he said in response to questioning during the trial that they allowed Alameda to withdraw unlimited funds from FTX. So that's not exactly a good look for Sam. And then he also said that he was just a coder and that Sam handled all of the media, lobbying, investment, and it was Sam's decision to make any decisions, especially regarding disagreements. So they're really just throwing Sam, like everyone is trying to distance themselves. Everyone's trying to blame it on him and pin it on him. And there are a number of people like yesterday, I think they questioned over 7 different staff members who were higher up and part of his close circle. And it was fairly quick questioning, but every single one of them said, well, we saw that there was rapid growth, but we didn't actually have our hands on it.
Yeah.
I was the primary voter, but I wasn't touching the money.
Yeah, everybody's just pleading ignorance and saying it wasn't me. And I mean, obviously the trial will get to the bottom of that. Evidence needs to be proven, obviously, that it happened or didn't in certain ways. But I mean, this whole thing just stinks. The only thing that I find weird about this $8 billion is that every credible source up until 10 minutes ago has said that there was a $3 to $4 billion hole of the 11. Yeah. And this is the first time I've heard 8. Now, the only thing is that could, if it was misinterpreted from the reporters, that's the only thing I can think of, because 8 plus 3 obviously is 11. And so maybe they, instead of saying the $3 billion hole, they said the 8. I don't know. If it's $8 billion, that's even worse, obviously, almost 3 times as bad. And it's an insane amount of money to have evaporated. And I mean, it's all due to avoidable decisions, very simply avoidable decisions. Oh, we have a bug in our code that could cause problems. Okay, let's fix that bug before it does cause problems. Like,
exactly.
Anyways, I'm clearly not a prosecutor on this case. Good thing. Because I still believe in the firing squad. So
the other thing that we should talk about at this time is the SBF approach. So everybody's pleading ignorance, including SBF, because how could he have known that this was going to happen? But also part of the trial is going to be focused on the regulatory debate and how there wasn't a lot of regulation. So SBF didn't know what he was doing wrong or if he was doing wrong. Of course, the prosecutors say that they can still charge him because this has to do with wire fraud and securities fraud. But some of the argument is that we didn't know it was a security. So how did we know it was securities fraud? So I guess we'll see how that plays out as well.
Yeah, maybe we'll get our friend GG in on this mix too. That'll be great. Gary Gensler chiming in. I'm sure he's got lots of opinions on this one.
Yes. And then there's a little bit of that philanthropic element to this as well, which is, we just had a new way to be altruistic. We had a new way to be philanthropic. We had a new way to engage with people. So of course we went for it with no regulation.
Yeah. I mean, they're trying to paint the picture of them being somewhat innocent in this whole thing and not malicious. That's what any defendant would try to do here. You would try to prove that you were just trying to build a business, that you had no idea, that you had the best intentions, but you overlooked something that any normal, reasonable person may have also overlooked. That's what his defense is essentially going to amount to. I don't think it's going to work here because there's an awful lot of evidence, at least on the surface. There's an awful lot of evidence that they had every indication that there was problems many, many, many times over, many, many, many months before this all came to a head. And so, I mean, there's also been a lot of speculation about the involvement of CZ and Binance in this whole thing. And
I'm so excited about this part.
Yeah, I know. We could make a really good movie out of this, I think. Maybe if I have any producer friends, if we have any producer friends in the audience.
Good, it's so dramatic. Okay, before we get into Binance, though, I do want to talk a little bit about the jury.
Okay.
If that's okay. So they ended up, it took a really long time to select the jury. It was supposed to be done on October 3rd, and it ended up moving into the next day. They needed 12 jurors and 6 alternates. But what they found is that many potential jurors had crypto losses already. And even if it wasn't an FTX loss, they couldn't serve because they might have emotional baggage from their from their crypto losses. Which, like, if a bunch of your jurors have crypto losses and we're doing all of these crypto court cases, we're going to run out of jurors very quickly, especially jurors who understand anything about crypto and finance and security. So I don't know, kind of a weird dichotomy there.
Silver lining is it's starting to prove publicly that more people than you think hold and own crypto.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, at a loss, most people right now. But
there's that.
I mean, this would be really tough because, like, you want unbiased jurors, right? But this has been the center of the news cycle, trying to take away from any traditional finance negativity that's going on. They've been pumping out the SBF, FTX, crypto sucks, crypto's going to die news to try to overshadow the hyperinflation, commercial real estate, macro economy on the brink of utter global collapse. Like, there's a lot of problems financially, but the news has been dominated by FTX and then some nonsense US bullshit. But mainly FTX.
So they questioned over 70 prospective jurors before they found their full 18 that they could have. Which is pretty wild. Yeah, that seems. I mean, it's quite that.
You know what? They should have just hired Bull. Have you ever seen Bull?
No.
It's a TV show where he's a jury consultant, and that's what they do is they figure out, like, they consult defendants on how to pick the jury, like who the best jurors are, and then while the trial's going on, they have a mirror jury, like a jury of similar people that they then can try to tell what the responses of the real jury are going to be based on. Anyways, it's a really cool
One day
show.
it'll all be a reality show. So the other thing that I just wanted to note from this is that a number of potential jurors were worried that they were going to be giving SBF the death penalty. So remember that he could spend up to, 115 years in prison? And people were worried that instead they might have to choose the death penalty. And of course the judge was like, no, where did this come from? But I wonder where that rumor started.
Isn't possibly a punishment for this. Like what?
Yeah, I just wonder how that rumor started and how that impacted their juror process. Kind of wild.
Yeah. There's a lot of ignorance in America of fairly what I thought was common sense items. Like, you'd be surprised how many people are like really just don't know things. Like,
idea.
Where the states are in the United States, where Canada is. Like, I'm from Canada, I live in the United States. Trying to explain to people where Calgary is interesting.
Do you mean that Rick Mercer's talking to Americans was real?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, obviously they only televised the really obvious, hilarious ones. But yeah, it's surprising how much ignorance there is. Oh, you can get the death penalty for this. What? Like, no. Have you been living under a rock? Like, when was the last time those sentences were carried out? The end of Trump. That was it. Yeah. The end of Trump was pretty much the first time that any death penalties have been, have been carried out in decades, I think. And then I don't think
that's true. I think it's very state dependent, isn't it?
It is state dependent, but I think I'm not sure exactly how that happens. I think
I'm sure. I'm quite certain that there's a couple of states that still have. I'm going to look it up.
No, there's states that still have it.
Yeah.
There's people that are still getting convicted of the death penalty as they're convicted with the death penalty as their punishment, but the sentences are very rarely carried out. They sit on death row, but they're not actually executed. And there's all these appeals and all this other bullshit that happens.
Yeah, it takes a long time. Yeah.
But yeah, there was a big thing at the end of the Trump presidency. There was like the first woman had been given.
Yeah, I remember that.
Had been carried out. There's a whole bunch of shit. But anyways.
Anyway, Binance.
Binance.
So if you do pick up the Going Infinite book, let me know, because I want to know what they have to say about Binance. Probably not enough to read it, but enough that I'll have a conversation with you about it. So, DM me.
I should actually pick it up here.
Yeah, I should also go get it. But so there's a few new items that came out. But what I really want to talk about is how Binance has been involved with FTX for a long time, what they chose to do, what they chose not to do, how they tried to bail, how they chose not to bail, and so on and so forth. So the first like major news story about Binance and FTX is that SBF approached CZ and offered to invest in Binance if they could also build their futures exchange. And it was a fairly substantial amount of money. It was $40 million. And Binance decided not to take that and build their own futures exchange. So that was in 2019. It makes me wonder what Binance and CZ were seeing at that moment.
Yeah, I think they were just vying for dominance, right? So FTX, of course, wants to have.
That was pretty early, like 2017 is when FTX started.
Yeah.
Right. And so only 2 years in.
They were likely trying to find revenue sources at that point, like someone that could license their tech and create revenue. And CZ was just like, do I want to give you that much access and control over the future of my business? I mean, if I was CZ, I probably would have said no too. I mean, there's some potential advantages in that collaboration, but I probably would have said no. The whole kind of story between CZ and SBF was in many ways competitive. Like they were vying to be the biggest and the best. Like that was kind of their thing. They were going to do this like power trading. That's what both platforms were going to do. They were going to serve the world, and bring the technology to the masses. But obviously that hasn't quite happened yet. and SBF totally messed it up. But CZ, I don't think is an angel in this whole thing. And again, I don't have the evidence of what actually happened during Terra Luna, the Terra Luna collapse, but Binance has been implicated in that a little bit, or at least it's been speculated that Binance should be implicated. I don't have an opinion because I haven't seen any of the info, but I don't know. This whole thing just stinks.
So after a little while, FTX did very well with their futures technology. And I couldn't actually find a date about this, but I would assume that within a year and a half, from just how everything is framed and phrased, CZ then offered an $80 million investment into FTX, which is how we saw them have that share. I believe it was a 20% share. And so this arguably was kind of the first step towards FTX going bankrupt, is what people are talking about.
Yeah, I mean, again, this I think kind of proves my point from earlier. CZ didn't want SBF to have an investment and or also be responsible for his trading platform, his futures platform, but was very happy to do it in the reverse, invest in FTX and have an inside look at their books and their business activities and all of this other shit, and eventually have access probably to enough information to lead to their demise. I mean, CZ could be both a hero and a villain in this case, because in many ways, CZ was one of the people that exposed FTX publicly on Twitter prior to the weekend and when the bank run happened. And BitBoy, to his credit, he went bananas and off the rails and has gone meaningfully crazy since then. But there's those two that in partially could be considered heroes, but at the same time, there's also speculation that CZ made it worse. So I don't know. It's a mess. The whole thing is a mess. It's a lot of money lost. I'm laughing about it only because we have a fairly sizable credit claim at FTX also. So I feel like I'm not laughing at others. I'm laughing at ourselves because we're So
then just before we go, like what actually occurred? What made FTX lose all its money? Was it Luna? Were there other mitigating factors?
Well,
this was news in what, October, November 2022, was a whole year ago.
Yeah, so there was a lot of different things. There was what was supposed to be collateralized loans that wasn't collateralized the way that it said it was. There was FTT tokens that were printed out of nowhere and assigned a value essentially by FTX and Alameda holding almost all of them and maintaining artificially inflated valuations. And then they used those FTX tokens to borrow a ton of money from a million different places. Sometimes, as far as I understand, they were using the same collateral more than once, because at the time, the process for escrow and custody and a lot of these arrangements hadn't been clearly laid out yet. So it was kind of a little bit less due diligence in some of these large loans, but they were huge loans, like billions of dollars to these other institutions. And the whole thing was kind of like a house of cards. Like it was, if any one of these small things went sideways, the whole thing came crashing down. And unfortunately, they had too many of those things that it was just inevitable that was going to happen. So, I mean, the number one reason I think that all of this happened was incredibly poor decision-making, of course, poor leadership in many ways. I mean, you should have at least a high-level understanding, probably a detailed understanding of the financial health of your business at all times as an executive. So, I mean, that's inexcusable in my opinion. But I mean, it was pretty inevitable this was going to happen. Everything was being based on, fictitiously valued assets that eventually went down when the market turned. They had a ton.
I think this is where the Binance thing gets really interesting again also. So Binance, as you said, could kind of see the books, but maybe not see everything. And so they started selling off they sold their FTX, and they didn't sell it all at once. They started selling it. And then actually after all of this went down, they continued to sell it. And this was when people weren't totally sure what was going to happen and how they might make people whole. And at that time, CZ actually said, it's just post-exit risk management. We've learned from Luna. And then about 3 days later, CZ came forward and said, yeah, we're not actually going to buy Binance. And so, or sorry, we're not actually going to buy FTX. And so there was a lot of other Binance emotions going on. And there are some theories now, especially with Going Infinite coming out, that Binance was kind of like dangling this potential that they might be able to buy FTX.
So that they could buy time to dump their tokens.
They could buy time to dump. And then also because SBF allegedly called CZ a douche, like to his face. And so that was related to the not building the future.
That's strange.
Yeah.
Called him a douche to his face, eh?
Some people think that maybe CZ was just kind of like toying with him, being like, oh yeah, maybe we can make everybody whole, and trying to make him whatever. I don't know. I don't know CZ. Maybe he's not that malicious. Maybe he is. But there's a lot of interesting drama. I can't wait till this is a Netflix special, honestly.
Oh, this is for sure going to be a movie at some point. Yeah. I mean, we'll have to see who actually gets a part. Maybe I'll make a cameo in the movie. Whoever makes that movie, I'm totally down to do.
Yeah, put some Go Find Yourself on there.
Yeah, yeah. All right, that brings us to the end. That brings us to the end of the week. Again, another reminder. Hey, BCP, I didn't notice you there until now. Another reminder: we're a live show Monday to Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. All the major venues. We've got you covered on Monday, so go out and enjoy the weekend.
Wait, hold on. We didn't say F you to the Gary Gensler ghoul.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we've said a lot of FUs to SBF. But...
So we say FU to SBF, FU to CZ, FU to all the employees at FTX that are pleading ignorant when we know that you're not ignorant.
Also, like, where did the there's no partners in crime? There's no like we go down together?
That all goes out the window during
Where's SBF's like bestie?
Everybody rats. It's the prisoner's dilemma. Everybody rats.
Okay, we need a 5-second Gary Ghoul intervention. Are you ready?
I'm ready. This is hilarious.
In the vast and mysterious cryptoverse, there is one ghoul that financially.
If you want to see, I guess that's all that uploaded. If you want to see the rest of it, it's on LinkedIn.
Is it a good video? I haven't seen the rest of it. I only saw that little bit. I
It's
thought you cut it off when we were looking at it.
I didn't. I thought you were cutting it off. I wondered why.
No.
Now we know.
And we also have proof that it's a live show because we mess it up all the time. But it's really cool. It's a really cool, like, Gary Gensler turned into like some sort of monster.
He's the Gary Gensler ghoul. And today on LinkedIn, I wrote a little article about where he comes from and what some of his inclinations might be towards his politics and that kind of thing. Whatever. If you want to know more about Gary Gensler, there's a little mini spooky article.
It's pretty good. You should definitely check it out. Okay. I likely won't be here Monday for
Monday's off. Monday is Thanksgiving for Canadians.
Oh yeah. So there's no show Monday. No show Monday, but on Tuesday, we got you covered from the weekend. So enjoy the weekend.
Take a long one.
Yeah, a long one in Canada, not here in America. We do Thanksgiving at the right time of year here.
Well, it's because it's cold here already.
It's winter there.
I had to pick my vegetables already. We must eat them.
All right. Well, everybody have a great weekend. Ceara, you have a great weekend. With that, I say to you, go find yourself.
Go find yourself.
Bye.